The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The Derbyshire Dales series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales again, people. I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. A lot of you guys who are regular visitors to the Dales will know this place. You drive through this to get to Chatsworth House. You also drive through it to get to Bakewell. There are loads of pubs and shops and touristy type things here. There used to even be a hydropathic hotel. This is Baslow and Bubnell. Baslow and Bubnell, Bass's Burial Mound and Bubba's Hill. Today on TVI we come to a parish that has two settlements that both begin with the letter B. They are Baslow and Bubnell, and they sit on either side of the River Derwent near Chatsworth House and 3.5 miles away from Bakewell. Baslow and Bubnell, although two separate places, are often referred to simply as Baslow collectively, seeing as Bubnell is little more than just one street on the riverbank. You can divide this one into at least 4 areas. Bubnell is one of them, and the other 3 are Overend, Netherend and Bridgend. All of them have their own distinctive character. Bridgend is where the Derwent is spanned by its charming 17th century 3-arched bridge, which sits next to an old stone shelter built for its former watchman. Netherend has what's called a goose green, a triangular paddock with trees and thatched cottages overlooking a brook, and that's popular with visitors. Overend has some of the newer properties in the village, and at one time had a hydropathic hotel where visitors would come to heal their ailments using the local water. There are many historical features within Baslow and Bubnell, including the Wellington Monument, the Nelson Monument, the Victoria Stone and the Eagle Stone. There are loads of pubs, shops and facilities here too, because it's a go-to place for visitors to Chatsworth, being located so close to the estate. Baslow is also known well for another reason, the huge gritstone escarpments that overlook it. Legend has it one of them had to be climbed by local men before they could marry. Luckily, I'm already a married man. Let's get going. Baslow and Bubnell is often referred to as one village, but it's a village that has several distinct areas. Our walk begins in Bubnell on the western bank of the River Derwent. Bubnell is an often forgotten area of Baslow simply because it's really just one street. It has some interesting buildings though. Bridgefoot Farm is one of them. Bubnell Hall is the most prestigious building in either Baslow or Bubnell and dates from the mid-1600s or perhaps even earlier. Its first known occupant was Robert Eyre. Many prominent local families have occupied the hall and its adjacent farmhouse, but all were tenants as the ownership lay with the Duke of Rutland. Between 1841 and 1898, the hall acted as a girls' school, attracting pupils from across the north of England and even one from the United States of America. Cross Farm may well be one of the oldest buildings in the area. It takes its name from a medieval cross once situated close by, now removed to the entrance of Baslow's churchyard. Bubnell House may well be the original manor house. It has a vaulted cellar and a door lintel of Saxon origin, and is also said to have monastic connections. Okay, so in stark contrast to Pilsley, which you saw yesterday, this is only a mile down the road, but it's a lot noisier. The reason for that is quite simple, because we've hit the main road here. If you're on this road, you're probably heading towards Chesterfield in this direction and to Bakewell in the other. A lot of cars use this. Now, we need to find our way to Baslow, which is over there where that roundabout is. But we also need to talk a little bit about this bridge that we're stood on. To get into Baslow, we have to cross the River Derwent. There are two ways you can do that here. One way is to use Baslow Bridge near the church, but we'll do that later. The other way is to use this bridge, the one that carries the A619 Bakewell Road. No sooner have you crossed this bridge, you'll hit a big roundabout where the A619 becomes Church Lane. Sports and recreation wise, Baslow and Bubnell can offer lots of facilities for a number of different activities. It has a huge sports ground off Church Lane, simply known as the Baslow Sports Field. This is where the local football team play. Baslow Football Club compete in the Hope Valley Amateur League, and they have a junior section in the Derwent Valley League too. Baslow Cricket Club are also based here. They have 3 senior teams. The first and second 11 Saturday teams compete in the Yorkshire and Derbyshire Cricket League. Their third side, a Sunday team, plays friendly matches in and around the region. They also have a junior section that plays in the Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire Border League. Although you can't play golf on these grounds, Baslow used to be a destination for those who like to wield a 9-iron now and again. Now defunct, there used to be a golf club out to the east of the village. Named the Baslow Grand Hotel Golf Club, it was founded in 1896. The course still appears on OS maps in the 1930s. A lot of people come to Chatsworth, especially when it's nice. There are 2 entrances to Chatsworth Park here in Baslow. We'll see one of them in a little while. I've just walked past the other one. It's close to the sports field down there. Now, one of them is favoured over the other one these days. The one we'll see in a bit is the one that's not used very often. We'll explain why when we reach it. But before we get there, we've got a load of other things to cover. So between here and the next landmark, which is this hotel on the right hand side, there's a surgery. Now, Baslow has quite a history when it comes to medicine. Off to the left, just after the sports field, Baslow has a health centre. Although it's just a run-of-the-mill surgery, Baslow has a long tradition of providing local healthcare. Early doctors, like Dr. Condell for example, served as both GPs and physicians to the Duke of Devonshire. Condell's successor was Dr. Edmund Wrench. Keep that name in mind. Wrench made a significant impact on the village, and his son Edward followed in his footsteps as a doctor. Later, Dr. Richard Edelston married Dr. Wrench's daughter and took over this practice. It later evolved with the advent of the NHS, and the BBC even documented a year in its life. It was called the Real Peak Practice. Nether End now, which is where the majority of Baslow's hospitality venues are. It has several hotels, pubs and restaurants. Here's one of them, the Cavendish Hotel, which is an old coaching inn. This predates the road it stands on. It was here long before a turnpike was first referenced in 1730 through Baslow. At that time, the innkeeper was John Marsden. It was originally known as the Peacock, which was a reference to the arms of its original owner, the Duke of Rutland. When sitting on the turnpike, it served travellers making their way between Chesterfield and Buxton. These days, it's more about what it can do for tourists. As one of 2 staging inns in the village, both present by the early 1700s, this would have been a welcome sight for travellers, especially in bad weather. The Duke of Devonshire acquired it in 1860, but only after refurbishment in 1970 was the name changed to Cavendish to reflect that of his family. Next, we have the village hall. Originally known as the Stockdale Institute, it was built in 1907 by the Stockdale family on land purchased from the Duke of Rutland. It was named in honour of the Stockdale family, particularly the Reverend Jeremiah Stockdale, a long-serving vicar of Baslow. The Stockdales were major benefactors to the village. Many of their number are buried in the churchyard, and there are memorials within the church too. And where better than the village hall to liberate myself of one of these things. There's a parish notice board here, so you know what that means, people. That is Baslow and Bubnell officially done. Now, that card might be seen by quite a few people, because people come to the village hall obviously, but a load more come to our next landmark. Now, next to the village hall, there's a big car park where lots of visitors to Baslow often choose to leave their cars for a walk around the place or through Chatsworth Park. This car park has a lot more than meets the eye. This was the site of Baslow Gas Works, built in 1864, a very early gasworks for a village of this size. It provided gas and coke for the village and for something called the hydro, which we'll come to later. You can tell it was a thriving plant too. There are scorch marks on the walls in the southeast of the site. The original gateposts of the plant still stand near the bus stop close by. It closed in 1963, but many original gas lamps, which have now been converted to electricity, are still visible around the village. Now, Baslow has several shops and attractions for the tourists. Most of them in Netherend are located around the village green, sometimes known as the Goose Green. It would be a little impossible to highlight them all, so let's just focus on one of them. This is the Café on the Green, the history of which goes back to at least 1851. At that time, this was a grocer's shop, run at first by Joseph Stewart and then by his widow. Various families took it over thereafter, including the Whites, the Marples and the Ellises. Thomas Ellis was here in 1901. His daughter ran the chip shop next door. It ceased to be a general shop in the 1960s when instead it sold antiques. Now, the Café on the Green, it's not uncommon to see this heaving with cyclists at the weekend. They do love a run through Baslow, quite regularly in fact. Being located close to Chatsworth, a lot of Baslow properties were owned by either the Duke of Rutland or the Duke of Devonshire. However, a few belonged to neither. Some in Netherend here belonged to the heir family of Hassop, but the freehold was sold to local residents in 1702. That makes them unusual. This odd setup might have allowed their later commercial development into a line of shops and two inns, and that brings us to our next building. Look closely at some of the properties around you here, and you may spot one called Malthouse near Bar Brook. It belonged to the Barrel Inn, which was located behind its replacement, the Devonshire Arms. This was built in 1851. Despite the name, the Duke of Devonshire never owned this pub. As the Barrel Inn, it was trading by at least 1800. The Devonshire Arms was designed to be a much grander and more attractive replacement because the idea was to cater to the early tourist trade. Now, of course, it's still relatively early in the morning right now, so these places aren't up and running fully yet. But trust me, with the sun up today, these will be heaving later. They are Derbyshire Dale's tourist magnets, let me tell you. Okay, let's continue walking this way, and we've got another pub to see next. It's the Wheatsheaf Hotel on the left-hand side, up there. The final pub in Netherend is the Wheatsheaf, the second of the two staging inns on the Chesterfield to Buxton Turnpike. Originally a homestead with arable land, an orchard and wood, it later became a coaching inn providing rest and refreshment along the route. It may have also served as a shelter for a toll collector and a place where locals stopped miscreants from entering the village. Of all the pubs in Baslow, this is the one that has the least that's really known about it. However, it makes up for that, seeing as it's the first thing you see on entering from the east. Just outside Netherend and the village itself are the so-called Golden Gates, which date from the first Duke of Devonshire's rebuilding of Chatsworth House. They were moved here by Sir Joseph Paxton for William Cavendish, the 6th Duke of Devonshire in the 19th century, to make a new entrance to Chatsworth Park. It was a requirement because the park hasn't always touched Baslow. It was extended northwards towards the village in the 1830s. The Golden Gates are rarely used now though. The main entrance to Chatsworth is elsewhere, and these are usually only opened for large public events. Okay, after that little walk back to the village green, we're now heading up into Overend. Now, I imagine this is a part of Baslow that's very seldom seen. All the good stuff is around the green and to do with Chatsworth, literally just behind it. How many people walk up here, I wonder? I imagine it's not very many. There are a few bits and bobs up here, though, including the former Hydropathic Hotel. Next, we find ourselves in Overend, a residential area on the hillside to the north of Netherend. This is generally seen as the newest area of the village. Overend used to have one of Baslow's most well-known features. Near the junction of Bar Road and Gorsebank Lane, there was a large hydropathic hotel which was demolished in 1936. In the late 19th century, the hotel was built for people to come and take the cure. They were believers that Baslow's waters would help joint and muscle pain. The Baslow Hydro was the 19th century equivalent of a luxury spa hotel these days. It occupied the whole of the area between Bar Road and what is now Eaton Drive. Its gardens stretched further down Eaton Hill, and the golf course we mentioned earlier was towards the Sheffield Road. The Hydro was opened in 1881 by a Sheffield businessman looking to develop a local competitor to the spa towns of Matlock and Buxton. The established Baslow infrastructure, including a ready gas supply, good scenery and the attractions of Chatsworth, led to a highly successful venture until after World War I. A lack of post-war investment led to its deterioration. Nothing remains of the hotel now, but on its site there's a small cul-de-sac called Hydro Close in reference to it. The other clue remaining to its existence are a pair of large gateposts. Otherwise, the Hydro is a long-forgotten Baslow attraction. This oak tree on the triangular green at the centre of Overend is first noted on a map dating from 1879. It marks the meeting of 4 routes. They are the one from the Old Bridge, the one from Carver via Overlane, the one from Chesterfield via Eaton Hill, and the one from Sheffield via Bar Road. It must have been an important crossroads and meeting place in a village that had no true centre, and still doesn't to this day, really. Okay, there are 2 shops in Baslow. There's the Co-op, which we'll come to in a little while, and then here in Overend, you've got this one as well. Overend has a few shops and retail facilities to its name. It's like a scaled down version of Netherend in effect. The village shop and post office forms the main focus of life up here. This area follows the old route into the village from Bridgend via Overlane, the main access from that direction as late as 1812. This land was freehold, and the random building configuration suggests that the original freeholder sold small plots for individual development. This allowed the siting of Hanover buildings, or the Zion Chapel, the original Methodist chapel, and this former pub called the Alma, dating from 1854. It was originally a beer house. School Lane now, and here's the reason why it gets that name. This is St Anne's Primary School, built in 1876 on a site given by the Duke of Rutland. Prior to the founding of this building, a dame school, a type of kindergarten, was run by Miss Hibbert in a house called Orchard Cottage. Hibbert and her pupils transitioned to the new school building, which was at first referred to as the New School. Hibbert continued teaching here for many years thereafter. This is not the oldest purpose-built school in Baslow. The Methodist Sunday School is the oldest educational building in the village, and we'll see that in a moment. Originally, this was a national school, but became voluntary aided in 1950 and changed its name to St Anne's C of E Primary School thanks to its ties with the church just up the road. Our final landmark in Overend is Baslow Methodist Chapel. Originally built in 1796, this has a history tied to the early days of Methodism in the village. Baslow's first chapel was erected on land belonging to Ralph Penniston following the visit of Reverend Buckley in 1795. The building was initially used for making felt hats before being repurposed for Methodist worship. Later in the 1970s, the chapel would relocate to School Lane. You see, this is its Sunday school, built in 1822, which became part of the church when it was constructed. In 1978, a decision was taken to combine the two after renovating and extending the schoolroom. The chapel was originally in the Bakewell Wesleyan Circuit before becoming part of the North Derbyshire Mission in 1905 and then the Peak Methodist Circuit in 1944. had a really good heartwarming moment there. As I was filming the school and the Methodist chapel, I noticed there were some children in the playground, so that's why most of the shots of the school are from behind the wall. You can't see the playground. And initially I thought to myself, damn it, I'm going to have to be really careful here. But it actually turned into something really good, because the kids in the playground were playing What's the Time, Mr. Wolf, which I've obviously not heard or seen or played myself since I was a kid. So that was quite cool to listen to them doing that. Anyway, we are done with the school, we are done with the Methodist chapel, and we are now heading down towards another pub called the Prince of Wales. Now we're in Bridge End, named for the actual bridge over the Derwent, which is located behind St Anne's Church. Before we see the church, here's another pub for your viewing pleasure. This is the Prince of Wales, whose history stretches back to 1710. It evolved from a property called Kessyland, which had a house, a barn and workshops. It was later converted into cottages and used by various tradespeople before becoming the Prince of Wales Inn. It was used by a carpenter, a grocer, an ostler, shoemakers, a butcher and a wheelwright in the 19th century before its final transformation. On the edge of the churchyard is the Baslow and Bubnell War Memorial. It's a stone Celtic cross commemorating those from the two villages who died in World War I and World War II. It features 22 names from World War I and 13 from World War II. The memorial was dedicated on November the 27th, 1920, after the land was offered to the War Memorial Committee in July 1919. Now, St Anne's is both a beautiful and unusual church. The tower has two clocks, one with Roman numerals dated 1759 and another dated 1897. That one was installed to mark Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. The word Victoria can be seen on it too. Inside the church, by the door, in a glass case, is a dog whip, which in the 17th and 18th centuries was used by an official dog whipper to keep stray dogs in order during services. The whip has a thong 3 feet long, which is still in excellent condition and is bound round the handle with leather. Some historians like to claim that as well as keeping dogs in check, it was also used to maintain order among worshippers. It was handy apparently for those who snored through services. St Anne's has an Anglo-Saxon coffin lid in the porch entrance, but the oldest part of the current building, the north aisle, dates from about 1200. The tower was constructed in the 13th century, but the rest of the church is newer and was the subject of an extensive restoration in the 19th century. A sundial lies in the church grounds atop the shaft, base and steps of an old cross. That may have acted as a market cross in the 17th century. A second cross, often called the Butter Cross, lies in the graveyard, which was moved from Bubnell by Dr. Wrench. He's buried in this very churchyard, by the way. Okay, out through the lit gates. And thank you. And we have a row here of a few shops. We've got one here called Simply Pale and Interesting. Not quite sure what that sells, to be honest with you. See some clothes in the window there. Next door to that we have Charlie's, this building here. It's like a cafe or a restaurant or something. And next door to that we have the chicken shed. And then the co-op is to the left of that, as you can see there. Now, we're going to talk about the co-op in a moment, but before we do, we need to head up this road a short distance towards the site of a former bus company. Now, until March this year, Bridge End had one of the village's best-known local companies, Hulleys of Baslow. They were an independent bus company which ran services across the Peak District, linking towns and villages with Sheffield, Chesterfield, Bakewell, Ashbourne, Glossop and Matlock. The origin of Hulleys can be traced back to 1914 when Henry Hulley purchased a Ford Model T and used it to run a taxi service from Baslow. By the 1920s, the company had expanded to run various bus services to Chesterfield and Bakewell, and it just kept growing. Through the acquisition of several small independent operators, the fleet soon had 7 buses and coaches, with excursions operated to York, Skegness, Southport and Blackpool. Henry Hulley died in 1955, with the business passing to his children and a coach being purchased in his memory. Hulleys would continue to serve Derbyshire for another 70 years. Following a period of poor performance, Derbyshire County Council stripped Hulleys of their contracts. On the 24th of March 2025, after 103 years of service, Hulleys ceased operations. There was a standoff here at the Baslow depot between numerous parties, including drivers who had lost wages as a result of the company's closure. Police were called after access to the depot was blocked by recovery vehicles. So, what happened to the services? Well, Derbyshire County Council awarded them to other local operators, including Andrews of Tideswell, Ashbourne Community Transport and Stagecoach Yorkshire. At the time of ceasing operations, Hulleys were operating 19 buses, most of which were single-deckers. They were a Peak District icon, but alas are no longer seen out here. Heading back from whence we came, our next job is to check out Baslow's co-op. This used to be a pub called the Rutland Arms. Originally it was called the Green Man and was one of several inns in Baslow owned by the Duke of Rutland. It was later renamed the Rutland Arms to reflect that before becoming this co-op store. It closed in around 2015. At one point it was made an asset of community value, but was removed from that list in 2016. The Rutland Arms used to suggest that Jane Austen stayed there whilst penning part of Pride and Prejudice. This is highly unlikely though. Whilst it's known that Austen did indeed stay in a pub called the Rutland Arms, the dates don't add up. Austen died in 1817, at which point this place was still called the Green Man. The far more likely scenario is that Austen stayed at the Rutland Arms in Bakewell, and we'll see that pub when we eventually hit the town. To get back to Bubnell, we need to cross the Derwent again, and that means crossing the exquisite Baslow Bridge. This is a Grade 1 listed building and a scheduled monument too. This is the old bridge over the Derwent. A date on one of its piers suggests it was built in 1609, making it the oldest structure in Baslow. The new bridge, the one that carries the A619 these days, was built in 1925 to replace this. That one's known as the Devonshire Bridge. That said, Baslow Bridge is still used. This is the oldest bridge across the Derwent never to have been destroyed by floods. At the northwestern end of the bridge is a stone-gabled watch hut. A lot of people believe this used to be a toll collector's hut, but it wasn't. This used to be manned daily to protect the village from bandits. One thing we haven't seen on our walk is something that would be quite hard to film without prior permission to. Here's a bit about Baslow Hall, just off the road to Carver. It was once occupied by Sebastian Ziani di Ferranti, the radio and electrical pioneer and inventor. Today it's Fisher's Restaurant. Grade 2 listed Baslow Hall was built in 1907 to the designs of Francis Holton Wrench of Sheffield on land bought from the Duke of Rutland for Mrs. Stockdale, the widow of a local reverend. It wasn't built without some controversy. The construction work caused some damage to the footpath along Carver Road, which the council refused to repair. The hall was put up for sale in 1911 when it was described as a commodious residence in the Tudor style of architecture, standing in its own grounds of about 8 acres. It was still being advertised for sale in 1912, but by 1913 the house had been purchased by Di Ferranti. With a 25 horsepower oil engine, he ran a private electrical plant at the hall until 1923. It powered many electrical devices, including an electric laundry, a lawnmower, and lighting for the hall's tennis court. The Di Ferranti lampposts still line the hall's drive today. After his death in 1930, the house was purchased by the Macree Thornhills of Stanton Hall as a wedding present for Humphrey Bache Christopher Davy. He occupied it until World War II. The house was then let to George Kenning, who occupied it until 1955. His son, Frank Kenning, died in the garage with a shot wound to his head in 1956. It was sold again to a second-hand car salesman and later sold to a retired London stockbroker. In 1988, it was purchased by the Fisher family and opened as the restaurant and hotel that it is today. As far as notable residents here go, one name sticks out more than most: Frederick Barker. Born in Baslow in 1808, he was the local vicar, but went on to become the Bishop of Sydney. Barker was, in fact, the second Anglican bishop of the Australian city. He was educated at the King's School in Grantham and Jesus College, Cambridge, where he graduated BA in 1831 and MA in 1839. He was made a deacon in 1831 by the Bishop of Rochester and a priest in 1832 before being placed in charge of the Perpetual Curacy of Upton in Cheshire. A 19-year spell in Liverpool followed, and it would take until 1854 for him to return to Baslow as the vicar. He didn't stay long. He was appointed the Bishop of Sydney that November. Among his early tasks as bishop were the completion of Moore College for theological students and for St Andrew's Cathedral. Barker was almost 2 metres tall, dignified and scholarly in appearance. He was deeply evangelical, and his teaching was based simply on the Bible. Due to his immense height and his abstinence from alcohol, the term Bishop Barker was jokingly applied to the tallest beer glass available in late 19th century Sydney hotels. The Sydney North Shore private school, Barker College, founded in 1890, was named in honour of the bishop by its founder, Reverend Henry Plume. Barker suffered a stroke of paralysis in his later years and returned to Europe in the hope of recovering. There was an improvement for some months, but he died in Italy in March 1882. I don't know whether you guys can see this because it's quite a long way off in the distance here, but coming downstream here on the Derwent, there's a weir before it reaches this bridge. It's sort of there. It's a long way away though. I can hear it in the distance. Don't know whether you guys can see it properly though. Anyway, we are finished with Baslow and Bubnell now, or almost, because now we have to make our way to another hamlet which sits to the east of all of this. It's called Robin Hood, and it's got another pub. Using the car, we have something else to see before we drive away from Baslow. To the east of the village is a small hamlet called Robin Hood on the A619. It's not much more than a collection of isolated houses, a B&B and a pub, but it still falls within Baslow and Bubnell and therefore needs a mention. The pub is called the Robin Hood Inn. Whilst the exact origins of the inn itself are unclear, it's known to be situated on a significant road near a moorland crossing. This suggests it was possibly early medieval in origin. The hamlet where the inn is located was originally part of a large area called Moorside. It's a small community, well known for the inn and for its car park, because it's a well-known spot for climbers who come to practice their skills on the nearby Crags. The hamlet nestles in a small side valley high up on the road to Chesterfield. To the east are the slopes and cliffs of the East Moors, defined by many edges. Here's a bit about them. Between Robin Hood and Baslow are the Edges, a long line of cliffs which dominate the Derwent Valley. To the north of Robin Hood are Birchen Edge and Gardham's Edge. To the south is Dob Edge. Birchen Edge is a gritstone rock face popular with walkers and novice climbers, as most of the climbing routes are in the lower grade. It's known for Nelson's monument and the 3 ships' rock carvings, both commemorating Admiral Lord Nelson and his victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. The monument is a 3-metre-high gritstone column erected in 1810 by John Brightman, a local man from Baslow. The 3 ships are natural rock outcrops carved with the names of Nelson's ships. Gardham's Edge is best known for an archaeological feature. It's a cup and ring marked stone or petroglyph, first discovered in the 1940s. It's buried under a replica to protect it from weathering and other damage. Another replica of it is on display at the Weston Park Museum in Sheffield. In 2012, it was postulated that a standing stone at Gardham's Edge could be a gnomon of a seasonal sundial, possibly dating back to the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age period. Quarries on the edge may have been worked by the Gardham family, potentially giving rise to the name Gardham's Edge. Dob Edge has connections to quarrying, ancient trackways and the Chatsworth estate. It's believed the name Dob may be related to local folklore of imps, or maybe even a personal name. To the north of Baslow is Baslow Edge, which was once quarried for gritstone. It features the Eagle Stone, an isolated 6-metre-high block of gritstone. According to tradition, local men had to climb this rock before they were worthy of marriage. Just behind it is the monument to the Duke of Wellington. It was raised in 1866 by Dr. Wrench. He certainly got around a bit. It marked an earlier visit by Wellington to the moor and was also intended as a balance to Nelson's monument. With Baslow and Bubnell completed, we can head off again. Don't for 1 second think that you've seen the last of those gritstone edges. Baslow Edge is just one of them. Continue northwards and you'll find more. Tomorrow, if the weather holds out, we should get a great view from the top of the next one. Join me there and we'll see what happens. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.